Thank you very much for the invitation. I am very sorry that I'm not able to speak Lithuanian. I should. Excellence, dear participants, sometimes Europe is defined as a very diverse community of nations living on a very small territory. And Central Europe, in a certain sense, is Europe in a nutshell, because the nations here are quite small, and at the same time, there was a huge diversity, especially in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, also with this participation of a Jewish community, which form about 10% of our society, and with a very specific kind of hospitality, because the Jews had in the Commonwealth their own parliament. This was a parliament which was called the Parliament of Four Territories, and a part of it was a Lithuanian Jewish parliament. But when we talk about Europe, we quite easily discern between Eastern and Western Europe, because this distinction is referring to the dissolution of the Roman Empire, so that a part belongs to the Latin world, the other part to the Greek one, to the Western Christianity or Eastern Christianity, and even the alphabet, Latin or Greek, is making this distinction visible. Or we are just at the border of the Gothic style, a new Gothic style, which exactly was passing through this eastern border of the Lithuanian-Polish Commonwealth. But what is Central Europe? We can say that these are the nations, states, territory, which is between Russia and Germany, but with this special, very specific sense of not being East, or even of being anti-East. So we had the feeling that we are different from Tatar Muscovy or Turkey, and Russia and Turkey were treated here as anti-West. So sometimes today we are very astonished at the fascination with Russia in the West, and especially with the perception of Russia as a defender of Christianity and Christian value systems, such as the right to life. When we are looking just on the war, it's difficult to say that Russia is a defender of the right to life. But the difference between Central Europe and Russia, that's not just a confession. A Polish philosopher, Felix Konieczny, was saying that Byzantium was only a side source of civilization for Russia. The main one became, unfortunately, Turanian. So these peoples developed only in war and decline in peacetime. Konieczny is writing, the Turanian state flourishes if it makes conquest, otherwise it collapses. And the main expression of this civilization was the Genghis Khanate, which was built on monism of private law, and they never had a separate public law, because the ruler was regarded as the owner of everything and of everyone in the state. So for intellectuals in Central Europe, Russia was and is a separate civilization based on different anthropology and with a different relationship between religion and politics that on the West. Recently we saw the massacre in Bucha, Irpin, Hostomel, which are referring also to the crimes committed in Katyn, for example. But in 1943, Stalin was also proposing to Roosevelt and Churchill to execute around 50 to 100,000 of German officers, saying this will calm Germany for some years after the war. Roosevelt and Churchill didn't respond on this subject. We can say that this kind of perception can be prompted by ill will or result from adopting negative stereotypes, or maybe to at least to a certain extent, they are fruit of getting to know the neighbor better when we know them directly. But nevertheless, all those intellectuals I have in mind always had Russian friends. And Adam Mickiewicz, who is so bind with Vilnius, was writing a poem to the Russian friends, the Moscovite friends. We have in mind also people from Memorial today. And then the question is how we in Central Europe should react on Russia today. Shall we just wait until they come to repropose their own model of civilization, or build a wall to fence ourselves from them? Or in the Bible, you have also another pattern. When Assyria was a threat for Israel, the Bible is saying God sent the prophet Jonah to convert them. We know that he managed finally with his mission, but Assyria never ceased to be a threat to Israel, even if they were converted. And when we talk about Central Europe, so the whole concept was elaborated by a German thinker, Friedrich Naumann, during the First World War. And he sought to establish Germany's hegemony in the global policy based on the colonies alongside with Great Britain, Russia, and United States. But the naval blockade caused Naumann to change his mind about the role of the overseas colonies, turning his attention to Central Europe, and more specifically to cooperation between the German Empire and Austro-Hungarian one. The unification of the territories of those two states would lead to creation of a purely German area with a universal German language. With the end of the First War in the 20s, in the German debate, this term Central Europe was replaced by the term Zwischeneuropa. And this was an expression of a peculiar embarrassment in the emergence of independent states in this area, which were considered only temporary creations. So Zwischen in the mid-1930s meant between the Stalin Soviet Union and Hitler Nazi Germany. Here in Vilnius, John Paul II was saying in 1993, For a nation, the negative effects of certain past diplomatic alliances must always be kept in mind. The interests of the great powers must never force a small state to become a little more than a satellite to the advantage of an external power, nor suppress it as a free nation to conduct the collective destiny of the persons comprising it, nor place the citizens under the oppressive yoke of foreign authority. Today, certainly, we don't have a sense of a threat of invasion of Germany to Central Europe. There was a wonderful process of reconciliation, although in some sectors of our societies, there is a fear of German political and economic domination. And this is provoking that people are very sensitive also for slips of the tongue, like, for example, committed Angela Merkel when she was in 2019 in Tokyo. And on the roof of one of the Tokyo towers, she was looking to the west and said to a Japanese journalist, that's exactly the quotation, "We are always almost neighbors. We are far away from each other, but only Russia is between us." Only Russia. That's a geopolitical perception. The establishment of the EU does not constitute the end of history, and as the former speaker said, also doesn't mean that liberalism is the definitive political ideology. We have to reflect also on politics and on political ideology, so on new models, how we can arrange our political sphere. But what is important, that the member states would not forget about their national, has not forgotten about the national interest, and have not decided just to take selfless care for the good of their neighbors and the good of the whole community. The EU is merely another way of organizing the space where the competition among the member states' national interests takes place. As member states have different populations, economic and political potentials, the game of interest is not actually played by equal international partners, but results from the asymmetrical interdependence among individual countries. This means that the most influential national governments pursue their interests most effectively, both in the negotiation process of the treaties, but also in the day-to-day negotiation practice. And this is provoking also an accusation that the EU is dominated only by two states, Germany and France, and consequently that is functioning in the interest of the two countries. What is interesting that this was stressed already as a risk at the beginning of the integration process by Robert Schuman, who was saying that Germany is too big for Europe. So his expression was, since Germania entered history, the German problem has appeared. But that's a problem of size. So that with the size, it's very easy to dominate the whole EU policy. And Schuman was regarding the process of integration as a peaceful way to domesticate Germany. So to avoid any future domination of Germans in Europe. A Polish thinker, Felix Gross, already in 1944, was saying that the wars started in Europe when Germany was surrounded by weak states. So, thinking about, at that time, the Council of Europe, still during the Second War, he said, to avoid this problem in the future, in Central Europe, we should organize a kind of regional cooperation, maybe federation, and this federation should enter as a unity to the European Council and will make a balance and will help to avoid the risk of domination and of future war. But I think that the issue of domination in Europe is a very important and very sensitive issue. And also having in mind what John Paul II expressed in the European Parliament, saying, the United European peoples will never accept the domination of one nation or one culture over others. The empire of the past, which tried to establish their supremacy through coercion and policy of assimilation, all have failed. I'm just saying that we have to be very sensitive here because any kind of domination in Europe will provoke the risk of dissolution, of the future dissolution, like of those empires which cease to exist. Talking about Central Europe, Milan Kundera, in his essay The Tragedy of Central Europe, is referring to a telex sent by the director of Hungarian news agency in 1956, just where the Soviets approaches to the office. And in this telex, he put an expression, "We are going to die for Hungary and for Europe." He had this need to say, not only for Hungary, but we are dying for Hungary and for Europe. And defending the case of Central Europe against Russia, Kundera underscored that in their opposition against communists, the Poles, Hungarians, the Czechs stood up not only against the political system, but also stood up for Europe and the European system of values. To die for one's own home country and for Europe, in his view, was the idea which inspired the dissidents in Warsaw, Prague, Budapest, Vilnius, an idea that was totally unthinkable in Moscow and Leningrad. That's another word. Today, we, I suppose, can include to the list Kiev, because the border of civilization is moving. When the bloodless solidarity revolution started and also smite the Berlin Wall, the process of reunification of Europe started. And the nations in Central Europe had the feeling that we were the bulwark of Christianity and Europe's eastern trench, so to defend this Western civilization. John Paul II in Warsaw was saying that when there was used an expression that we should enter Europe, this expression was offensive because we never left. So we are just Europeans, and but Kundera is stressing the fact that when we were separated by the Berlin Wall from the West, and when we were fighting for the European system of values, in this moment, Western Europe, they started to neglect those values. So that we are surprised today that what we defended and what we were ready to die for is no more valued on the West. So that Kundera is saying the real tragedy of Central Europe then is not Russia, but Europe. This Europe that represented a value so great that the director of the Hungarian news agency was ready to die, and for which he died indeed. Behind the Iron Curtain, he did not suspect that the times had changed and that in Europe itself, Europe was no longer experienced as a value. I think that these words are corresponding with what we heard recently in Munich when J.D. Vance was saying, the threat I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the threat of Europe for some of its, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values. So, who we are, how we understand ourselves, what we would like to defend altogether, what is making of us a community of nations, also in the European Union. That's, I think, a very important question, but also in the sense that this is making a difference and provoking tensions between Central Europe and Western Europe today. We are much more backwards in the sense of what Europe was in the history, what meant to be European in the past. What are the values which created European culture and European civilization? John Paul II in Vilnius advised us, indeed, the true interest of nations cannot be thought of solely in terms of political strategy and economic development. The new word, if should appear after communism, has to respect primary values of justice, peace, dignity of human person, to restore the respect for fundamental human values, and the Pope is listening them. Human rights lie at the origin of international life. The most fundamental of this is the right to life, to live in dignity, the right to freedom of conscience and religion, as well as the right of a family. In the Catholic social teaching, we are saying, we are discerning between formal procedural democracy and substantial. So we will not be able to save the formal democracy without the substance. In the previous decade, there was a debate in Europe. I think probably Peter Fiala launched this. What does the C letter in the name of Christian democracy stand for today? So when there is a party, and the main party, the main fraction is called still Christian democracy. So he started the reflection, the debate, what does it mean C in the name of the party? In the current debate, we have a significant retreat from democracy. It's not only about the decreasing number of countries considered democratic in the world, but also about the decline in the quality of democracy in so-called democratic countries, including the West and also other countries. Censorship, attacks on religious freedom, nullifying the result of democratic elections, preventing opposition candidates from running in the elections, the undermining of the authority of constitutional institutions like Supreme Court, disregard for democratic procedures, and so on and so on. In the Polish debate, the Prime Minister launched the term militant democracy. But we know that that's our historical knowledge, that if you add the adjective to the word democracy, is nullifying the sense of the noun. So people's democracy meant something different than democracy. So I think that this debate over what does the letter D in the name of Christian democracy, but also in the name of other political parties stand for today, and the debate on the letter C, they are closely related. If the C is stripped of its content, the same fate will befall with the letter D. John Paul II was just saying, if there is no ultimate truth to guide the direct political activity, then ideas and convictions can easily be manipulated for reasons of power. As history demonstrates, a democracy without values easily turns into open or thinly disguised totalitarianism. So he was afraid, and this was also expressed in the Polish parliament by the Pope, of the alliance between democracy and relativism. Still, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger was here using the term dictatorship of relativism. I think the threat that this will be realized in our society is very high. But Cardinal Ratzinger was saying also that this risk of a turn into totalitarianism is directly linked with the process of secularization. So that when the church as public and publicly recognized authority is disappearing from the public debate, in this moment we have a kind of process of sacralization of secular state. Because there's this political dualism, that there are two authorities of the same rank with different competences, but where one of them is helping to the other. Also stressing where the borders of every of the competences every of these authorities, is disappearing. So Cardinal Ratzinger was saying, the ideological state is totalitarian. It must become ideological if it is not balanced by a free but publicly recognized authority of conscience. When this kind of duality does not exist, the totalitarian system is unavoidable. The prophet Jonah was instructed by God to go to the east. And he immediately got up, went to the harbor, bought a ticket for the nearest ship in the opposite direction to Tarshish. When I spoke with my Portuguese friends, they are very proud because they are saying Portugal is the only Western country mentioned in the Bible, because Tarshish was on the current territory of Portugal. And we can say that for our generation, the problem was the civilization gap opening its mouth in the East. The challenge for today's generation is the fact that that one was not closed and another has opened in the West. So today it would be necessary for God not to stop Jonah on the way to Tarshish, but he should go and do his mission on the west and then turn to the east. That's changing the context. That we cannot say that there is a secure zone concerning culture, values, Christianity. That's just, if you have any doubt, just look to the West. And you will know what does it mean, and that this kind of civilization is possible on the earth. So we are confronted with the crisis. So we can say with this difference of civilization on the East and with the crisis of civilization on the West. So the questions arises is how to defend ourselves against the East not falling into the traps set for us on the West. How to pass the national tradition to a generation tempted to dissolve in the European melting pot. How, in this new context, to take care also for the independence of our countries, one with such difficulties. How to preserve the Christian tradition of the old continent. How to preserve freedom in the face of risk of modern technological authoritarianism. For the hope that we can simply sleep through this time of crisis like Jonah on this ship, that we will remain a calm, paradisiac island in a stormy ocean, is flippant. We need the ability to quiet the ocean around us. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, we see Jesus sleeping on a ship, on a boat, and the apostles crying to him, "Why, Lord, save us, we are perishing." And Jesus said, "Why are you fearful of little faith?" Then he arose, commanded the winds, and take the lake, and there was a deep silence. And the people were amazed. Who is he that even the winds and the lake obey him. When we take the exhortation Ecclesia in Europa, we usually stop quoting the title with these two words. But the whole title is saying, the only hope for Europe is Jesus Christ. That's the message which you will find in this text, which is a kind of diagnosis of what's going on with Europe. We live through much more difficult times recently in Central Europe. And Central Europe, despite persecution, has preserved European values and also Christian faith. And this experience can be very important for you, the whole Europe today. But first, we ourselves must value our tradition and our values. We must not let more letters of the Latin alphabet lose their meaning. Thank you.